Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's press conference with the two-time Masters champion and current world number one, Scottie Scheffler. Scottie, it's obviously been a fantastic season for you so far. You've won several times on tour, obviously winning the Masters. How much are you looking forward to the challenge this week and putting yourself in contention again?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be back over here this year. Excited for the week. I think the golf course is great. Should get some good wind this week. Looks like it should be pretty consistent. Some good breeze, which is I think increases the challenge of this golf course, and it should be a fun week.
Okay, first question, Dan.
Rory was in here talking about how important he felt it was to play the Scottish Open, to get used to the conditions and the greens. You obviously didn't play. What went into that decision?
I've done it the last couple of years, and I felt like it was more important for me to get over here to this golf course and prepare, getting used to the conditions of the grass, the bunkers over here.
Okay, next question in front.
Scottie, what do you feel like the process for learning links golf has been like for you? It's different for every player. I'm curious, like you've played in 4 or 5 now of these. What do you think it's been like?
This is my 4th. And as far as the learning curve goes, I mean, I just feel like you have to be more creative here, and I love that part of it. I feel like when I do come over here, this is really kind of how golf was intended to be played. I feel like there's a lot more opportunity for shot making and being creative around the greens. And I can just see how, somebody who is either a bit older, maybe not as talented as some of us out here, like you take a 10 handicap, that only carries it 200 yards and they can run it up and have fun and not really lose many balls. But the golf course out here is still going to challenge players like myself. And so it really is fun to come over here and play. And I feel like just getting more creative. And I think the biggest adjustment was how much the ball spins off of the turf here. It spins a bit more than it does at home. And so when you're playing shots into the wind, it'll typically have much more of an effect on what the golf ball does than what we're used to. So getting used to a little bit of the heavy air and just a little bit spinnier turf.
Okay, next question, microphone number 4.
Scottie, obviously you've had huge success back home. Do you come here with different plans based on what you have learned from the 2 or 3 times you've been over here for the Open? Do you come here with different tactics of how you're going to try and break down the course and attack compared to when you're back home in more American-style conditions?
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll definitely be different tactics out here, but like you said, that's why my preparation was a little bit different this year, focusing more on this golf course than last week. Getting over here, feeling a bit more rested. And yeah, as far as getting used to this place, the links golf is obviously a lot different than what we play at home, and so getting used to the firmness of the fairways, getting used to the different bunkering and the speed of the greens is obviously a bit different as well.
And how big a factor is the driver going to be this week? Do you think you won't be taking as many drivers off the tee? Will there be 2 irons and stuff instead?
It all depends on the wind. So like today we got downwind on a lot of the holes in the front 9, and you could hit some drivers if you wanted to, and you could definitely hit some irons if you want to as well. And a lot of it's going to be a little bit of a game time decision just based on the wind, but most of the back 9 I'm going to be hitting driver just because the holes are significantly longer and are supposed to be playing like slightly into the wind. And so being able to hit driver into the fairway, I think, will be a big advantage this week if you're getting the ball in play and driving it well. It's been a wet year so far this year, so the rough is thicker than it has been in years past, so it's a bit more of a penalty.
Okay, next question, back right.
Hi, Scottie. The consensus is that the front 9 is the easier 9, but obviously you've got this postage stamp hole, which I think you're familiar with now, like 120 yards, and you've got this longest hole. So you've got the shortest and longest holes in the Open. Could you just talk us through those holes? I know you haven't played it in competition, but how do you see them?
Yeah. Well, you got number 6, the long par 5, and I think it's a really good hole because, especially when you get it slightly downwind, you can get to the green in 2. Still, just with how firm the grass is. If you carry the ball, let's say 300 yards in the air and it's a little bit downwind, it's going to roll out on this turf, at least 30 yards, unless it lands into an upslope. And so you'll be able to get there in 2. And so I like that it has opportunity on that hole. And then I think number 8's great. The postage stamp. I get frustrated sometimes when the solution to distance is just making holes further and further, and then it only just encourages guys to try to hit the ball further and further and not worry as much about controlling your ball. And number 8 is a good little way to kind of almost step back in time and control your ball a bit more, and you don't have to make a par 3 230 yards to make it a great hole. It can be 120 yards. I think a hole's like 12 at Augusta and 17 at Sawgrass. I mean, the best par 3s in the world are short par 3s. They're not overly long par 3s, and because it leaves opportunity for you to hit a great shot. And if I don't hit the green on number 8, it's most likely going to be a bogey unless you're in the front of the green. I mean, if you miss it in the right bunker or the left bunker, I mean, if you hit in the left bunker, you're going to be glad to be making a bogey because it's probably going to plug and you're going to be getting up and down for your bogey. So I think great little short holes like that are fun. I think it's an underrated skill for guys nowadays to be able to control your ball, and I think it's something that we need to continue to encourage in our game, not just building golf courses longer and longer. I mean, you can make a short hole with a small green, and it's pretty dang tough.
Okay, next question, Tom in the front.
Hi, Scotty. What's the most difficult conditions you've ever experienced on a links course, and how did you cope?
Most difficult, I can't remember if it was 2 years ago or last year at the Scottish at Renaissance Club. I mean, the winds were blowing sustained like 30 miles an hour and gusts were blowing over 40, and it was cold. And so those were the toughest conditions that I can remember. And most of it was just, like I said earlier, how the ball spins a touch more off this turf. It was getting used to how much the ball will actually fly into the wind, because when it blows that hard at home, and let's say typically when it does, it's a bit warmer. You know, springtime, we always get high winds in Texas, and you can kind of pinch it and hit it through the wind. But with the ball being spinnier off the turf, if I tried to hit that shot that I would at home, it would almost spin even more off the turf and then go even shorter. And so I had to learn how to adjust and shallow out a little bit and hit it low without as much spin.
Sorry, just one more for me. Is there, when you're out there and it's blowing and it's rainy, is there a psychological game that you have to play with yourself to convince yourself that you're actually enjoying that?
I think if you're playing well, it can be pretty enjoyable. And I think when things start to go south, you really got to stick with it and just continue to grind. I was always a guy at home growing up that I would play in whatever condition it was. And so I try to embrace that when I get out here in challenging conditions.
Okay, microphone number 3. Is that you, Doug? Yeah.
Scotty, what was your first ever experience with links golf?
When I came over here, played the Scottish I think it was in 21. Played the Scottish and I played the Open Championship.
Never came over on any type of a holiday or a Walker Cup or anything like that?
No, our Walker Cup was in the States, and I never made the Palmer Cup to come over here and play. So, didn't play any junior tournaments or anything like that over here.
And then, secondly, the bunkers here. How much time do you spend in them?
I'm spending a good amount. One of the things I liked that the RNA changed from this year, from last year, was the bunkering. Last year, I thought it was a bit silly how they flattened out each bunker, and the bunkers are still a penalty enough when the ball's not up against the lip. It was kind of a little bit of luck whether or not your ball would kind of bury into the face. Just because you have a flat bunker and a wall, it's just going to go right into it. And as long as you build a little bit of a slope into it, you can allow guys the opportunity to get out of the bunker. And if you're around the greens, it allows for opportunity for guys to either take on the lip or play smart and play sideways. It leaves more opportunity for great shots and more risk and reward around the greens and in the fairways, just because you have an opportunity to either hit a great shot or just play it safe and go out sideways. And so I love the way that they changed how they rake the bunkers this year with the more traditional sloping coming off of the walls.
Okay, Louine.
Okay, you said earlier on you love being creative here. Now, do you play one of your creative shots from the 8th, or where are you producing one of these?
Yeah, well, it depends on wind direction. That's
Yeah.
one of the things. If number 8's playing into the wind, then yeah, I'm going to have to get pretty creative with what I'm doing, especially since it's an elevated shot. You know, it's a shot that you have to try to hit without a lot of spin. And so that would definitely be, like, for instance, today I think it was like 113 adjusted to the pin, and my pitching wedge at home usually goes about 140 yards, and I hit a shot that was a high 20s pitching wedge with no spin, or with less spin. I call it no spin. It's my no spinning shot. And so that's kind of just one of the little creative things that you got to try to do, which is a shot I typically don't hit a ton at home.
So you said what? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said at the end.
What's that?
You were talking. You were talking about the creativity of your shot.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, so like if I'm going to take 15 yards off of a club and not try to spin it, that's a lot different than, hitting a stock shot.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, microphone number 2 over here.
Scotty, as you'll know, the last person to win 6 in a year at this stage was Arnold Palmer, 1962. His 7th that year was the Open at Troon. It would be nice if history repeated itself with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great.
Were you aware of the fact that his 7th was
No. No,
No.
I really do mean that I try to stay off the internet as much as possible. I like to, when I'm at home, I like to try to be at home and be present. And so I love the history of the game, and there's certain things that I know and certain things that I don't. And that was something that, for some reason, I just never stumbled across. And so I had no idea that that was a thing.
Okay, Bob.
Scottie, at its most basic level, your foot action, is that the result of you creating a lot of club head speed, or does that help you create a lot of club head speed when especially on a driver or the long shots?
I don't really know exactly what it does for my club head speed. I've tried to hit a few shots with my irons with what you would like call traditional footwork, and I just felt kind of locked in, felt a little bit too robotic. And so I've always been a guy that loved hitting a lot of different shots, you know, changing the height, changing the curve, and that's how I play most of the time. And in terms of my footwork, I just felt too kind of locked in and unnatural if I don't do what my feet normally do, because it may look funny to y'all, but it feels totally normal to me. I never thought twice about it. Basically, I didn't really think much about it until I got out on tour, and it really became something that I got asked about. That was kind of my calling card when I first came out on tour, was my footwork, and it was something that I never really thought about because that's just always what I did.
Is it, in the end though, the idea is to get the club square, right? And obviously this helps you do that. Like if you were to try to not do that, did you notice that you weren't as consistent?
I mean, I did it maybe a couple times in a row, and I just didn't really like it,
Yeah.
and so it never really got any further from there. The last time I can remember trying to hit a shot with normal, traditional footwork was Faldo came up to me on the range a couple years at the Masters, and he was one of the guys that was, I think, pretty critical of it at the time. And so when he came up, he's like, well, he asked me why, and I was like, I don't really know. I mean, let me hit one normal and see how it goes. And so I hit one with traditional footwork, and I turned around and I was like, it just feels like I'm locked into the ground. I don't really feel like I can hit my shots. And so then I just kept moving my feet like I normally do.
So is that a good mark of your coach who didn't try to change you?
Yeah, I mean, Randy is, he's taught me since I was 7, and so we have definitely made changes to my swing, but that was something that he never changed. I mean, I think the words he would use is that was kind of just the DNA of my swing, and he doesn't want to change, what I did to try to work the ball. I think that was one of the things he liked about me when I was a kid was there was always a pull out on the driving range, and I would try to hit it with a straight shot, and then I'd try to hit it with a draw. I loved being able to curve the ball, and I think part of it is because I learned when I was a kid, I used to play in the house with a ping pong ball, and a ping pong ball is super spinny, right? And so I would learn to curve it, from room to room and spin it a lot, and that was what was fun for me about the game. And so as time went on, I didn't want to turn into a robot. I wanted to do what I thought was fun, and that was seeing and creating and trying to hit shots. And I get bored sitting there on the driving range trying to hit every shot straight, and so sitting there and learn how to curve it, learn how to hit shots, and that's more fun for me than it is just sitting there and working on club position.
Thank you.
Okay, my phone number 3.
I mean, like you said, you have always taken pride in keeping golf and life relatively separate. I mean, this year though, you had people practically tracking the birth of your child. You had the Louisville incident. Just there's more focus on you. How much trickier has that gotten to keep?
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit trickier. I think continuing to play better this year, definitely, especially at tournaments, I think there's just a lot more going on, day to day. And I think I've had to almost lean into that more, just continuing to improve my rest so that it's actually restful. I think that's something that my wife and I are always working on. When we're at home getting rest, what does it actually look like to be restful? And that's not necessarily always just sitting there and watching TV. There's a lot of different things that we do to get good quality rest, so that when we come back out here on the road and come try and play and do things, I have the energy to compete. I have the energy to really the social energy to come out and interact with the fans and do this kind of stuff, sit in the media center. Believe it or not, this isn't my favorite thing in the world to do, but it's part of the job, and it's something that I enjoy. I enjoy doing it. I like being able to come in here and sit and talk to you guys and, do all the stuff that comes with playing great golf. It's a pretty cool feeling to be able to make somebody's day just by signing an autograph or taking a picture. That's a pretty fun feeling, and I'm trying to embrace more of that side of it than not being able to sign everybody's autograph, and then people are upset because you can't get to them throughout the day. That's not a fun feeling. So I'm trying to lean more into the feeling of making somebody's day just by simply signing something or taking a picture.
We'll take the final questions in the room, starting with number 2 at the back.
Hi, Scottie. Wondering if you've seen the house that's in the middle of the course, and how unusual is that? And have you ever seen something like that in other places?
Yeah, I think it would be more. I have seen the house. I think it would be more unusual if there wasn't all the stuff built around. It kind of blends in. I think it would, if I came here, 6 months from now when all the tents and all the build out's gone, I think it would be a lot more unusual. But I've only seen the place with massive grandstands and stuff, so it's hard to really tell how much it stands out there.
Okay, microphone number 1.
Scottie, I know you guys are all trying to beat each other, but when somebody suffers a tough loss, the walls tend to come down sometimes and people reach out. I was wondering if you'd reached out at all to Rory after Pinehurst, and then what your toughest loss was, and if there was anybody who reached out to you that you kind of always remembered.
As far as reaching out to Rory, I didn't. I think sometimes guys, he took the next week off at the Travelers, and it seemed to me like he wanted his space, and so just felt like giving us his space was the best thing to do. As far as my toughest losses have been, it was a great one for Rory. East Lake a few years ago, I'd say was probably one of my toughest losses, and I remember immediately after, I think Justin was standing there and gave me a hug, and he didn't really have a ton to say, but he just gave me a hug just because we're good buddies. And, there's certain guys that I'm very close to out here on tour, and Justin's definitely one of those guys. And so it was nice to, just to get a hug. And I think that's what's cool about competing out here is you make some, great friends for life, especially being on team events with those guys and stuff like that. Really have great friends for a long time. We love competing with each other and, sharing in successes and, beating up on each other a little bit as well.
Okay, we'll go to Sean, and then Doug will be final.
You and Sam popped down to Turnberry the other day. A couple years ago, you made a couple stops in Ireland. I'm just wondering, what inspires you guys to stop at these top courses more over here than you maybe would at home in the States?
Well, really more of what happened this year was, since I didn't play the Scottish Open, in terms of like the travel and the jet lag and everything, you need to get here a bit earlier in order to be ready to compete. And so I didn't want to come here and play Troon that many times in a row before the tournament. That would be outside of my routine. And definitely outside of Sam's as well. And so when we came over here this time, it was like, well, let's find somewhere else to go play on Saturday. And, we were fortunate to go out there and play, and we had a great time, great golf course, had a ton of fun, played with our caddies, had some good matches. And as far as Ireland, when we did that, it was for the McManus Pro-Am, and I obviously wasn't going to play a practice round for a Pro-Am, and so they gave us the opportunity to go play some other golf courses and see some of the links courses there in Ireland. And it was a tremendous amount of fun. We played, I think we played Lahinch with Jordan and Sam, and then I think Sammy and Teddy went over and played Ballybunion the next day, and it was just a ton of fun.
Okay, Doug.
Following from an earlier question, if you go back from Corn Ferry to your first win at Phoenix, Masters, and then everything you've done this year, have you noticed, mostly on the road, being recognized more? Have you had any weird moments come up?
I've definitely had some weird moments come up. It'll be hard for me to remember them off the top of my head, but there's always some funny ones because I think sometimes people don't know exactly what to say, and they can be a bit weird at times. But in terms of one of the things that's been really great about this year is the fan support I've gotten. I really feel like the crowds this year have treated me wonderfully. They've been behind me, and it's I always dreamed of growing up playing on the PGA Tour, and so being out here playing in front of great crowds and having them scream your name and holler when you make putts and be truly rooting for you is a great feeling, and it's something that I'll always cherish for my time out here. And it's one of the very special perks that we have of playing out here on tour is playing in front of great crowds and being able to feel their support. Couldn't tell you.
Okay, on that note, we'll bring.
I guess you'd have to ask them. I feel like I've always been a guy that just let my golf clubs do, all the talking for me. I guess that's kind of the cliche, but I never really thought of myself of anything but a golfer. I was never trying to be famous. I didn't want to be a celebrity or whatever. I just wanted to become a good golfer and, you know, get the most out of myself. And it's brought me this far. And so I continue to just try to keep my head down and, you know, put in the work that got me here and just continue to practice and hopefully continue to get better. And as far as the crowd support, it's great. Like some of the things I talk about, like being able to take a photo with somebody or sign an autograph and, you know, have a good impact on their day is a really special feeling. And I try to embrace that side a lot more now, because when I first came out, I would feel bad that, or I guess I should say when I first was having some success, I would feel bad that I couldn't sign, you know, everybody's flag. And then you spend a decent amount of the day telling people no, and that's not a great feeling, you know. So I'm trying to lean into the more of, you know, being able to sign the autographs and, you know, hopefully getting a good reaction instead of a bad one.
Okay, we'll bring things to a close there. Scottie, thank you very much for your time and very best of luck.
All right, thanks, Sean.